Hello, friends of the podcast, and welcome to Directionally Correct, a people analytics podcast with your host, Cole Napper, and today's guest, Madeline Laurano, founder and chief analyst at Aptitude Research. In this episode, we will cover what the ROI of people analytics actually looks like, this research report that you and Aptitude Research put out about the ROI of people analytics, what's driving momentum and the hype behind AI for talent acquisition and workforce planning, and what the research actually shows.
AI has the potential to make it easier. A lot of strategic workforce planning in the past has been manual.
What it's like to be an independent HR industry analyst. What is it like being an industry analyst, and what role you play in the ecosystem, and the real ROI of small dinners and authentic relationship building. The value of things like relationships and building things and getting even sometimes secret knowledge. Now, let's get down to business. Hey, Directionally Correct fans. This podcast is dedicated to you to help democratize people intelligence for the world of work. If you're looking to support the podcast, please make sure to listen weekly, subscribe to the Directionally Correct Substack newsletter, sign up for the Data-Driven HR Academy at datadrivenhracademy.com, purchase Cole's book, People Analytics, or check out everything else at colenapper.com. Before we get into it, a quick word about HR Bench, the company powering this podcast. You know, when we all started in people analytics, we wanted to do strategic work, building predictive models, workforce planning, advising the C-suite, and most of all, quantifying the impact for the business. Instead, we spend months building dashboards and reports that should already exist. HR Bench eliminates that entire phase. Your HRIS connects, your metrics calculate, your benchmarks populate. This is not novel. This is day one, not quarter two. That means skipping straight to prescriptive analysis, storytelling, and taking action for the business. Want to learn more? Book a demo at hrbench.com/directionallycorrect. Find out more about the company powering this podcast and building the future of people intelligence. As always, all opinions are our own, and thanks for being a listener. Madeline, it's been a long time coming. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I've been trying to track you down for a while about this research report that you and Aptitude Research put out about the ROI of people analytics. You didn't know this, but this was like catnip for me. I've been wanting to talk about it with you for so long, and I'd written a book on people analytics, and ROI was kind of a central theme. There were 3 sections to the book, and one whole section was on this topic. And so seeing you out there and doing, God's work of doing this, I'm really appreciative of it. But can you talk a little bit about some of the research that Aptitude has done on people analytics and the ROI?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I think I'm curious to talk to you about this because I think we're both going to come at this from different perspectives. A lot of the research we do on people analytics is designed for HR leaders or HR leaders that might have zero understanding about analytics altogether. So it's really kind of more of a basic look at people analytics and showing, okay, if you're not investing here, you have no insight and no way to kind of make sense of this static data that you have sitting in all these different systems. So the ROI we really looked at is 18% of HR leaders aren't even tracking ROI, or 18% are tracking ROI. That's a huge percent that aren't even looking at it. We found in 1 and 2, just for talent acquisition leaders, aren't even thinking about ROI. So this was really looking at, okay, people analytics provides tremendous ROI. I mean, you know this better than I do. And we looked at it from the perspective of an HR leader that might know very little about it. You're looking at it from the perspective of people analytics leaders within an organization, a company that might have a function that's either growing or starting or either pretty mature. So I'd like to pool our minds together on this one.
Well, absolutely. I think that's actually why your perspective is so valuable. I talk a lot of inside baseball on this stuff. And really, if you're trying to influence things at the HR leadership level or even the C-suite level, you really have to have a broader perspective than what I bring. And so one of the things that you talked about in the report is, the C-level perspective on the metrics that matter. What are some of the things that you found in that respect? And just how does having that kind of the outside in lens help kind of build the credibility of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, we did a series of interviews and then we did a survey. And so we have survey
Hmm.
data and then we have all this like anecdotal interview data. The interview data was actually even more interesting because it was so interesting how few HR leaders actually have regular conversations with C-level executives. So
Hmm.
what they're measuring as success is often not what C-level executives are measuring as success. Like traditional metrics that we've had in HR just aren't metrics that business leaders care about, like time to fill. No one's really talking about. So,
Oh,
some of these
they're not
metrics,
just clamoring for the time to fill
I know,
measures.
like, yeah, where's my time to fill dashboard? I can't wait for it. So it's this kind of translation that needs to happen from the metrics that matter to HR to the metrics that matter to the business, and that's not happening enough. That translation. So just in the conversations, it was shocking how often they're not asking business leaders what metrics matter to them. That came across. That was the big aha to me in just the interviews. And then in the data, I mean, retention's obviously huge. Productivity, anything related to revenue, cost is a big deal. The other piece that I think is so interesting is I'd love your take on this too because I think it absolutely impacts people analytics is companies during the pandemic had this buying behavior in tech
Mm.
of let's buy everything, right? Like
Yeah.
budgets are up, up, up. We can buy anything we want. We all of a sudden have new priorities like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which
Mhm.
companies didn't prioritize enough before the pandemic. So there's been this huge investment in technology. And now, fast forward 6 years later, those budgets are not where they were. And a lot of tech was bought that never was implemented and never was used. And the data in those systems make zero sense at all to anybody looking at it. So if you're an HR leader, and I'm thinking from an HR leader's perspective,
Mhm.
my first tendency would be, okay, I don't know. I think we made a lot of mistakes on some of these systems. And I don't know if I'm comfortable having a conversation internally about replacing them, getting rid of them, reevaluating them, putting more pressure on the vendors. We're kind of doing it all in a silo, and we're not involving our CFO or executives in this process. Um, and I think that needs to change. Like it's like any other type, any other area of the business is going to go to the CFO and say, "We bought these three vendors; they're doing nothing for us. Can you work with us? You harass them, we'll harass them, and we will, figure out a new path forward." There's no collaboration there with HR, or there's little collaboration there. And then when you think about what people analytics can do and the potential it can do, when there's not
Mhm.
that collaboration and you've got all these wasted systems, there's barriers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago I started giving this presentation privately at conferences that were like kind of closed door called "Is People Analytics a Luxury We Can't Afford
Yeah,
Anymore?" And one of the core, and this was coming again off the heels of COVID, like you said, because my thesis on it is that we had taken the wrong lesson from COVID.
yeah,
So the lesson that we thought we took is like everybody got all this investment, you got all this new technology, we're awesome, right? That's what people took away from it.
yeah,
That was not why we got the investment. We got the investment because business we were kind of a victim of our own success in a way where we got the investment because businesses realized that in a remote environment you have to prioritize the employee experience and you have to have data on your employees if you can't watch them, if you can't see them in the office, if you can't do all this kind of stuff. And so when the RTO revolution came, there was a lot of CFOs and just CEOs that were looking around going, okay, why do we even need this stuff anymore? We're back in the office. And people analytics teams were like, oh no, we're super important. You remember how important we are? And I think it was kind of a reckoning of sorts. Now I do think we're back on the upswing now, thank goodness. But one of the reasons we're on the upswing is because people analytics teams were challenged to start defining the ROI of the work that they were doing. We
yeah,
had to. It couldn't just be a belief and oh it's just our employees. That's what matters. That's really what's going to
yeah,
carry the day. It has to be. We have to start paying for ourselves. And my whole kind of stick on this is you have to be paying for yourself 10 times over, or you're not doing this right.
yeah.
And so I don't know. Did that kind of resonate with some of the things that you heard in the discussions you were having as well?
100%. And I think the other big piece of that that goes along with exactly what you're talking about is it's not just like one point in time. Like you just don't wait
Mm-hmm.
till December and you're measuring ROI now. Like it has to be ongoing.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to show that value consistently. I mean, the other thing that came up a lot, I mean, I love this ROI conversation, by the way. The other
Yeah.
thing that came
And I have one key question about it that I want to get to. I want to make sure we don't forget.
Okay. The other piece of it I think that's so interesting is like ROI. Like you and I could geek out on that. Like we could come
Mhm.
up with like, what's ROI? Like if we were working together at a company, we'd just like have a ball with this. But we know it doesn't have to be perfect. Like we're going to make some
Mhm.
mistakes. It's not going to be great. Some of it's just curiosity. Some of it's like testing out what the value is and showing what the value is and seeing if that's measuring up a month later. Like I heard one company call it almost journaling. Like we're getting curious about just what the like just journal like write down what's important to your executives, start to look at like how are you going to tie this all back together. And I think a lot of people think they hear ROI. A lot of HR leaders are not, math is not probably their favorite subject at
Mhm.
school. It's not
It
been,
should have been,
it should
but
have
yeah.
been, but it's not a skill set that's been with traditional HR. So to hear ROI, you just think, okay, numbers has to be right. There's a right answer and then there's a wrong answer. I don't know if I have the right answer. I'm just going to stay away from this topic altogether.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier that, and it kind of intrigued me because I didn't realize this. You said something like the way that people analytics might think about ROI might be different than how HR leaders and some of the few folks that you talk to think about it. What are some of those differences? And what are some of the ways that you define it? And maybe I can kind of give my perspective afterwards on like how I've talked about defining it in the past.
Yeah. So the way that I define it is you have to think about like when I think about that journaling exercise, it's like what
Hmm.
are the costs? What are the benefits?
Yeah.
Understanding like the benefits to the business, not just to HR. And
Hmm.
then what's the time frame? Like what is that payback period that you want to see the ROI? So to me, it's some there, we've got our formulas that we've used, but
Yeah.
there needs to be some formula that involves all three of those basic things. What will the cost be?
Yeah.
Hidden costs, implementation costs, like whatever this might come out to be. What are the benefits? And again, benefits to HR, benefits to employees. And then the final piece is like, when do you want to see that payback? I think for a lot of, if you use kind of ROI for investing in an HR system, the
Hmm.
payback has always been like years. Like, oh, okay, now it's finally implemented, and 3 years later, are we starting to see whatever they're measuring, which might not even be what the business cares about.
Yeah.
For a lot of companies that we've done ROI case studies with, they can see payback much quicker. I mean, especially now with
Yeah.
AI, like payback can be in just a few months.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got two follow ups on that because now you intrigued me. Where did that like, kind of like that general rule of just in HR technology more generally, the payback periods being over multiple years? Where did that kind of standard come from? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, vendors all have their ROI models, right? That they're
Hmm.
helping companies work through, which is awesome, and they should do that. And then organizations have kind of whatever they've put in place. I think, to be honest, I think a lot of that long payback period is because there isn't an ROI model in place.
Yeah.
So it's like we're buying this technology without really thinking, especially during COVID, right? Like we've got a budget, we can buy much quicker than we could in the past. Like maybe we can buy in 6 months, which would be 18 months normally. So we
Yeah.
can buy this quickly. We're not really even thinking about what the benefit is. We just know we've got this gap here that we need to solve, and now we've got money to solve it. They're not, often thinking what what would make this successful in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like the time frame of the teams that I've led in the past was it's always the yearly performance cycle. So you can't wait for a multiple year ROI. You've got to be able to prove your value within a single calendar year, whether it's the fiscal year, whatever your business is doing. But you've got to be able to do that. I do think about this. I always said like ROI is really three categories, and you've kind of touched on them, but I use slightly different words, which is the I'll start with the last one first because I think it's the funniest, which is just people liking and valuing your work.
Yeah.
In HR, people have to like and value it, even if it doesn't have an ROI. And you were kind of saying things about like the journaling and doing experimentation and just kind of it's just kind of the vibe, let's call it. Like people have to like it and value it. And then there's directly and indirectly. So directly is you can show that people analytics did X, it influenced this decision, and this decision had this impact on the business, right? And therefore, we can take a certain percentage of the value of that decision and say that people analytics caused that. Indirectly is, I always use like the example of sales, right? So you did some analytics and it made us increase sales. That's directly. But let's say, imagine a lot of HR topics aren't actually about increasing sales. It's about increasing the effectiveness of sales leadership or the effectiveness of sales enablement. And those things have an indirect relationship to sales improving as well. And then showing that relationship, and you can attribute some of the ROI there as well. I don't know. Does that kind of jive with the notions that you've been thinking about?
I love the direct and indirect. I love that you're differentiating that because I think so often this has come up all the time for years, is those indirect benefits we just feel like we can't talk about, or that's
Mhm.
not valuable. We don't really know how to tie it, so we can't talk about that. If you differentiate it and you call it out and you identify what's direct, what's indirect, you can talk about both. I love that. I'm going to borrow that from you. It's good.
Yeah, just cite People
So,
Analytics
yeah.
2025. Yeah, yeah, so it's in the book. But yeah, absolutely, I love that. Well, it was really great. I actually met you, and you don't know this because it hasn't come out yet, but with my last podcast guest. And so I just had Nick Kennedy on the podcast
Oh,
to talk about workforce planning and the SWP conference, and that's
yep.
where we originally connected a few years ago. Do you have love for workforce planning as well, Madeline?
I do. I have love for workforce planning and I have frustration for workforce planning, and it's both
Mm,
things. I think, I mean, one of the first reports I ever did as an analyst was on workforce planning, and I did it
mhm.
with the Newman Group, if anyone remembers the Newman Group, which was a consulting firm that Ed Newman had at the time. And they were doing a lot of consulting work with big companies like McKesson, Southern company. Like there was a bunch of companies doing Volvo. No, Volkswagen Group of America had relocated from Michigan to, I think, the Virginia area. So that was
Mm,
a workforce planning exercise.
yeah.
So it's definitely been something that I focus on for a long time. The problem and the frustrate where my frustration is companies use it as a start and stop. Like, okay, we're doing layoffs. Let's strategic workforce planning now matters. Or a company's going through what Volkswagen Group of America went through, which is a relocation, and we need, different talent in a different location. What are we going to do? So that's the frustration, is it's always like been a start and stop. And it's so important. And I look at everything happening now with restructuring of teams, with AI now being part of work. Like, how does work get done? Whether you want to call it work, whether you want to call it tasks, like there is a huge conversation within organizations and HR about how is work and tasks getting done and who's doing it. And
Mhm.
that's workforce. That's, if you've got strategic workforce planning, that's where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so many companies don't have a function that what I love about where it's at today is that, so many vendors have done announcements now, and they're coming out with the new product. Vendors have never talked about
No, no, never. Vendors would
it.
never just rebrand what they were already doing as something else, right?
Never, never. It's unheard of. I know I just had one demo with a vendor and I was like, didn't you have this before? And they're like, we called it
Mhm.
budgeting. And I was like, is that really what you're showing me right now? But it's a big topic. And I think, what I hope with AI and what AI can do with workforce planning today is that it doesn't become this complicated thing that companies don't know how to do, or they don't know how to manage, or they just want to do it once when they're
Yeah.
going through layoffs.
Yeah, I just actually published a piece earlier this week about, because I think one of the real catalysts behind why workforce planning is hot again at this moment is all the AI workforce transformation that's going
Yep.
on. And I put out a piece about what data do you actually need to understand how AI is going to impact your workforce. And as in my estimation, nobody's really doing this, like no one. And so I think you need like third party labor data on the skills and the tasks that you mentioned. And some people say, oh, that's all you need. No, you need way more than this, right?
Yep.
You need what is the actual AI usage data from like your vendors, whether it's Gemini or Claude or whatever you're using internally, or maybe something proprietary that you built in house. You need your own internal productivity data on how AI is impacting your productivity of your individuals, your processes, and even the whole enterprise, right? And different enterprise units. You need data on your employees and non employees, because non employees are actually doing a lot of the AI work at many organizations. You need data on the costs associated with all of the AI, because and you need it on the cost of human labor, the cost of non-employee labor, and the cost of tokens of the AI, to see if you can actually do the break-even analysis on which is the most optimum way of applying this type of work. And any vendor that's going out there and they're saying like, we figured this out, it's like, no, you have not, because nobody has all of that data, right?
So I know, like as you're talking, the first thing that's coming to my mind is like, what vendor's doing that? No one's doing that. That is what you need to do. It's the only
Yeah.
way you can get that
Well, I
full
know
picture.
of one who's going that direction, but
Okay.
I'm not.
We'll talk offline.
We'll talk offline. But it is interesting, and honestly, because I like my motivation on doing a lot of this stuff is I always share like what I think is where the puck is going,
Mhm.
and people are like, Cole, why are you sharing this public? Everybody could copy it. I'm like, yeah, I want them to copy
You
it
want them to.
because I want this to improve the experiences of HR, to elevate the function to the level that I think it should be at, and we can't be there if everybody's not winning together.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But I think about this like all the things that are happening in workforce planning right now. What do you see is kind of like where are things going, and how is that impacting things like talent acquisition as well?
So I see, you know, again, there's like more discussion. It's like super hot again, strategic workforce
Mhm.
planning. A lot of vendors are now workforce planning providers that never were before. Um, when I've been demoing a lot of the solutions, they look the same to me as they looked a
Ooh,
few years ago. I
yeah.
think AI has the potential to make that to make it easier. A lot of strategic workforce planning in the past has been manual, regardless of what technology you used.
Hmm.
You
Correct.
still had to do a lot of manual work, and you needed probably someone with some expertise on your team, whether that was people analytics
Yep.
professional or a dedicated strategic workforce planning professional to really get this done. I think where AI is going with workforce planning, maybe that's not the case anymore. You might not need that person doing as much manual work as we've seen before, but a lot of the demos I'm seeing in the events, we've got scenario planning, we've got talent
Hmm.
segmentation. We're, kind of pulling in different data from, but it's all within their system. It's not the data, extensive data you're talking about. So I think I love that we're getting more comfortable talking about it as an industry. And I think that's what we need to do. I think there's not enough urgency around it.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's enough urgency. Like this, if you're going to start using AI within your workforce and you're going to go through this AI transformation that you're talking about, like you have to do strategic workforce planning. There's no other
Yeah.
way.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm curious. We kind of glossed over this. Some people that are listening probably don't even really know what an industry analyst is
Mm.
and how you're able to do some of the research that you're doing. Can you talk about like what is it like being an industry analyst and how like what role you play in the ecosystem in the community and kind of maybe some of the cool and fun stuff you get to do in that capacity as well?
Yeah, I'm not even sure I know what an industry analyst is because it's changed a lot, but I do love my job. I think, you know, to me, an industry analyst has to do research. That has to be
Hmm.
the main core, component of what an analyst is. And there's a lot of variations of different analysts out there, but I think research has to be part of it. And that needs to come through quantitative research, through surveys, and that needs to come through qualitative research with interviews. And it has to come through a lot of demos with vendors. And we do tons of demos. So I think what an analyst should do, given that work of like research that is quantitative, qualitative, and then through demos, is be able to provide some clarity on the market. And that's what my hope is as an analyst. Is kind of we're third party. We're not doing the work as a practitioner is. We're not building solutions like vendors are, but we're looking at it from a different point of view and saying, this is how I see the market, and this is what is not real, and this is what is real. And there needs to be a balance between the research and having some opinions too, that can turn out to be wrong. I think that hockey puck example or analogy should be
Hmm.
what analysts do as well. I think there needs to be some type of, forecasting or predictions about what's happening that can change, but that should benefit the whole market.
Actually, I want to dig into this. That has really intrigued me. This concept of taste and judgment and discernment has been coming up in a lot of conversations I've been having lately
Yeah.
and publicly too about, if AI can do a lot of like knowledge and just factual based information, what is the differentiating point that humans have? It's taste and discernment and
Yes.
judgment. How do you this is a weird question to ask somebody. How do you have that as an analyst? Like, how do you gain that, and what is kind of the special unique sauce that you have that other people don't have, Madeline?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. So I think,
Hmm.
I've been doing it for over 20 years, and I've been wrong more times than I've been right on what I think's happening in the market or my opinions or my taste. So I think there's some confidence with that when you've been doing it for so long. I used to think it was number of years, like an analyst was an analyst because they've been doing this for a number of years.
Hmm.
I don't think that's the case at all anymore. I've seen analysts, like I was just blown away by two analysts that just became analysts in the past year, two, young women. And I mean, they were hands down the best I've seen in a long
Hmm.
time. I don't think it has to do with number of years anymore at all. I
Is
think,
one of them a mutual friend of ours?
um, I don't think, no, but a
Okay.
mutual friend is absolutely someone on that
Okay.
list
Yeah.
too. But
She's
there's
great.
these were women I didn't know before, and I
Oh,
just
okay.
met them at a conference, and I was blown away. And so I think there's a level of being a person that has opinions and having that sort of judgment personality. Like if you and I were going to go out and get coffee or get a drink, we'd probably be going firing back and forth about what we think about this and that, and I like this and I can't stand this, and we both have that personality. Some people don't, and
No one's ever accused me of being judgmental at all. I don't know what you're
me
talking
neither.
about.
Me neither. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I wanted to talk, like, one of the kind of the cool things that you get to do is your involvement with certain conferences and getting to do certain activities that I see as very, well, high prestige, first of all, but second of all, is kind of a contribution to, again, that judgment of where the field is going. You get to kind of be at the forefront of all of that. So, can you talk about some of the things that you're doing in that respect as well?
yeah. I've been traveling like crazy this year, and it's been a combination of conferences where you go and often moderate a panel. So
Hmm.
facilitating that conversation to say, okay, we've got some experts here that are doing the work and coming with different opinions. How can I tie this all together, in clarity? And I think that's the word I'd use to describe an analyst traveling or writing or whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
You have to provide clarity in the market. You can't add to the confusion. It's already a confusing place. So I think that's kind of what I hope my role is at conferences, moderating panels to provide some clarity, providing a clear message of where I see the market going or where I think the market has been, and doing a lot of roundtables, workshops, presentations. But it's fun, and I learn more from the people on my panel or the people I'm with in workshops with than I do from a survey, to be honest with you.
So, what's your most favorite and least favorite conference? Don't answer that. Anyway.
Yeah, that's another offline.
Yeah, that's but I was trying to tee you up there to talk about what you're doing at HR Tech this year.
Yeah, so I am the MC for the HR Technology Conference this year, and
Hmm.
also judging top products. So speaking of strategic workforce planning, there's been
Hmm.
several submissions on that front too.
Well, I look forward to seeing what comes out in that respect. But one of the things that I've noticed about you and just kind of the analyst community in general is that we being a person with the analytics background, it's always data is of the utmost importance, right? Can you back up what you're trying to say? Like, is there something? Is there evidence? Is there something that supports this? There's also this other side to the coin, which is kind of the qualitative component, but also the value of things like relationships and building things and like getting even sometimes like secret knowledge behind the scenes
Yep,
through those type of situations. A lot of things like small dinners,
yep,
hosting like kind of backroom conversations and a smoky bar and that kind of
yep.
thing. Well, talk about that as well, and kind of what role that plays, and understand how the world really works, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens, is all those side conversations, and you find out it's a lot. What I think is the most interesting is usually what companies are thinking about vendors and the selection process. And we do some consulting work on that front too. But it's very interesting. It's interesting to see how decisions are made. I've been learning, especially over the past few years, that there's a whole side with vendors, and it's like, oh, like I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's actually not what they do. I can't believe they're positioning themselves that way to you. But there's a whole side and dynamic that's happening within organizations about how they're making decisions around technology has nothing to do with the vendor, but that is complicated and not tied to the ROI that we've been talking about, and really more about politics than it is about buying great tech.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think about what it's funny to share this publicly, but we actually kind of got catfished into doing this podcast together. You want to talk about that, Madeline?
We got, yeah, we got catfished into doing this podcast together, but it was meant to be. I was, I think someone in PR team reached out that for someone else that worked for me, and then
They reached out to both of
to
us,
both of us.
and
Yeah,
both of
I thought
us
it was
thought
your
it was.
PR person.
Yeah, it was like both of us thought it was the other
Yeah,
person reaching out, and so we're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'd love
yeah.
it. It was like I actually had wanted to have you on the podcast, but it was like this really strange situation. You're like, who's benefiting
Yeah.
from this?
Well, the funniest thing was I don't exactly remember the person's name, but I'm gonna call her Claire. So it was
Yeah,
like you saying, um, oh, and Claire works for you, and I'm like, I don't know Claire, and you were like, I
yeah.
don't, and I was like, Claire works for you, and you were like, I don't know who Claire is.
I was like, who's paying this
Yeah,
person?
who's
They're,
this person?
they're clearly working for
I know,
free, but I don't know.
that's
That's
amazing.
weird. But one of the things that I've been talking about recently, just kind of to bring it back to people analytics,
Mhm.
is I don't feel like I know that AI is eating large chunks of some of the core skills and discipline, and frankly, the technology that has been kind of the bread and butter of people analytics.
Yeah,
And so a big question that's been going on in the field, and I've been talking about it a lot on the podcast, frankly, is people are saying, is people analytics over? Is it dead? Is it going through a midlife crisis? And all those types of things. And I've put forward this thesis of there's a successor ideology to people analytics. That's what I'm calling people intelligence, and that the future of intelligence, and I mean this very much in the way of like the CIA and the NSA think about intelligence, not just how we think of it as like, oh, it's just more insights,
yeah.
right? And that there's new and novel ways that AI actually enables that intelligence revolution rather than hindering the intelligence revolution. Are you seeing that in some of the work that you've been doing in the space? And what are your thoughts on that thesis?
100%. I mean, I know I've seen something you put out, or maybe it was an
Mm-hmm.
email between the two of us about
Yeah.
this kind of shift from people analytics to people intelligence. And I was like, could not agree more. There, it has been interesting to see the buzz around is people analytics dying, or, is it kind of revived? But I think the intelligence piece of it is exactly what you said, but it's also um, not just understanding data and insights and drawing insights from that data, which maybe AI could do or not do, um, but it's also the the judgment and the context that comes along with that. And I think even when you're talking about the role of an analyst, that's what people intelligence is, and that's where I think the value is for people analytics professionals, is moving into people intelligence, where you're not just able to um, you know gather data, understand data, interpret data, analyze data, make sense of it. You're also providing the other side that AI doesn't do, which is the judgment, the gut, even, those pieces kind of need to be part of that equation too. So I think that's absolutely what's happening. I've seen vendors calling it workforce intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I'm like kind of anti whatever vendors are trying to categorize.
Yeah.
I actually like it better. I think um, the workforce intelligence is the evolution of people analytics, because it's also now we're not just trying to understand work from the perspective of people doing it. We're understanding it from how is work getting done by machines and technology and AI
Sure.
and people. So I almost think even the next iteration is the workforce intelligence should be,
Oh,
yeah,
I agree. I actually chose the name people instead of work. I've actually had my old job title was workforce intelligence at two different organizations.
yeah,
And I chose people for a reason. And it is to say that so there's two competing notions as far as I'm concerned about, is AI a tool or is it a collaborator?
yeah,
And I am very much on the side that AI is not equivalent to a human being. It's a tool of human beings. And I want to position humans as not equivalent to, but superior
yeah,
to that. And so one of the things I've been trying to do is semantically convey that message of like, people are always going to be at the core of what we do. even if we are analyzing a lot of what AI is doing, AI serves us, we don't serve it, kind
Yep.
of thing.
Yep.
And so that's, but I'm not opposed to the name workforce intelligence either. This is just my little like subtle war
Oh, I
on
like
what's
that.
going
Yeah.
on.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like that. You should.
I reached out to one of my old colleagues at Lightcast, Eleanor McGreeny, and she actually pulled for me. In the last 5 years, there's been 69,000 job postings for people analytics, and there's been 500 for people intelligence already. And so it's a very nascent term, but it's growing rapidly. I've actually created a Claude tracker of all the positions that come out in people intelligence,
Yeah.
and it's going up by leaps and bounds. And so I mean, I just talked to two different folks, one at Workday and one at Cisco, that have just turned their people analytics teams into people
People
intelligence teams.
intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
definitely on the rise as well. But I do see what you're seeing out in the market. But I think you were well positioned to talk about the intelligence concept as well, because I think you actually applied to the CIA when you were leaving grad school. Did you
Yeah,
not?
I did. Yeah, I mean, I thought, and to be an analyst, not to be
Yeah.
an agent out in the field doing the work. I mean, but I've kind of always loved the intelligence side of things. That just was not in the cards, especially after 9/11, which is when I applied and
Yeah.
spoke French and not a language they preferred at the time.
Wow. Womp womp. But
Yep,
you were, I think you even said, I always love these little idiosyncratic things that people shared. You told me you were the captain of your riflery team when you were younger. Is that true?
I was. Yep.
How did you get into that?
Co-captain. My sister was the other captain. So
Oh,
it was just, yeah, just growing up in Pennsylvania, and there was a riflery team, and in the summers and summer camps and stuff, that's what we do.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Madeline, you've been a good sport. Do you want to keep being a good sport and join me in Cole's Corner?
Yes.
Welcome to Cole's Corner.
I'm nervous about Cole's Corner, but I'm ready.
You should not be nervous. This is the fun part. So I start out with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
If you weren't an industry analyst, what would you have done with your career?
I don't know. I think it's something writing, so journalism or something like that, I think would
Hmm.
probably be where I would have gone. That's what got me to be an analyst, was I liked writing.
No, that's awesome.
Hmm.
What's the place you've never been to that you'd most like to go and why?
The Maldives. I've always wanted to go to the Maldives. Just, I think, needs no explanation other than being paradise. I was supposed to go, and then the war
Yeah.
in Iran broke out, so that ended that.
Well, I will say this: I watch a lot of like animals related things with my children,
Yeah,
and in the Maldives they have a lot of those mangrove swamps as
yeah,
well. Would you want to go see the mangrove swamps too?
yes, for sure. I
All
want to do it
right.
all.
If you were a character in any book, TV show, or movie, who would you be and why?
Oh my goodness, I I this is not someone who I am, but I love Seinfeld. Like, I love Seinfeld. I think it's like one of my favorite shows ever, and I just love Elaine. So, and I love Julia Louise-Dreyfus. So that
Are
would
you a
be
Veep fan as well?
what's that?
Are you a Veep fan as
Yeah,
well?
I was a Veep fan too.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a recent guest that said that they were Larry David as well, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's good. Yeah.
so
I like
that's awesome.
funny. I like being around funny people. I like laughing. I think I just love that um, dynamic. I mean, Tim Sackett's like one of my best friends, and he, like, the two of us could be a Seinfeld episode together. So,
I bet. But you guys are a riot. Um, well, I got one big question for you. Where do you see the HR tech market going over the next 2 to 3 years? And what do you see within that? Because obviously, a lot of times when the market goes a new direction, some of it pans out, some of it's vaporware, and a lot of in between. But what do you think is going to be the thing that actually materializes as being a true trend that adds value to businesses in the next few years?
yeah, well, workforce planning is a good one. I'll pick something else though, because we did that one already. I think
Hmm.
I'll talk a little bit about where I see it right now, and then where I think I'd like to
Okay.
see it there. I think right now it's very messy. I think the HR tech market's messy. It's exciting. We're seeing so much with agentic AI, but everyone's kind of building these agents. Vendors are selling like 20, 30 agents, and then companies are building their own agents. Teams are building their own agents. And it's really, really messy, especially when you don't understand the pricing of the token economy. So I think if I were to pick one word for this year, it's messy. And then if I'm looking at where I'd like this industry to be in a year or 2 years, it's orchestration. There's a lot of buzz around orchestration. I think we've talked about the buzz around intelligence.
Mhm.
I think orchestration is misused as well. But I think the idea of having some overarching strategy plan integration of all of this AI, it's not just a wish list. It has to happen. Otherwise, this
Yeah.
is a nightmare.
So I guess, and you may not have the answer to this, but how does that actually happen? Like, I feel like that's a really challenging thing. And one of the reasons it's challenging is because it's not just a technology problem, it's a
Right.
coordination problem. And how do these firms actually provide that coordination to allow the orchestration to even happen?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a coordination, it's a process problem too. I mean,
Yeah.
companies need governance frameworks for their HR
Hmm.
teams. They don't have that. They're like relying on IT's governance frameworks. They have to put together governance frameworks. They have to think about what's the strategy. How are they managing this, build versus buy environment that we're in today? And a lot of that is just completely just the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some kind of governance and framework in place, and a process around it. Sometimes it's reevaluating the process, the processes that are already in place. And then, I mean, there are vendors that are focused on orchestrating this all together. But I think to your point, if the coordination and the process is wild, wild west, they can just take you so far.
Yeah. When earlier in your answer, you said about agents as well, and I mean this to be very provocative. Have you seen any agents that actually work? And like, if so, like, what are they doing? Like, what are the really strong use cases for agents?
Yeah, I mean, I think the yes, I have seen some agents that do work, and I think it's when it's very laser focused on a small task.
Hmm.
When an agent is doing something, what an agent should be doing, or what differentiates an agent from other areas of technology or AI, is it does a task end to end completely without human involvement. Human can get involved. We can talk about human in the
Hmm.
loop, but it can do that task completely without human involvement. And that task has to be small and has to be low risk for it to work right now. So, I mean, even on the talent acquisition side, some of those sourcing agents, I mean, they work. It's like you don't have a sourcer, you don't have a sourcing team. Let the agent go out and find candidates, and that's low risk. A lot of the scheduling too, that is happening now and I'm not even talking about like talent acquisition scheduling, like
Hmm.
shift scheduling for frontline
Yeah.
workers. That stuff is just like magic. Like, okay, like let's just get that schedule shift happening through an agent versus having to go
Oh,
to your
that's interesting.
manager.
Yeah, that's a space I don't follow as much. But earlier in my career, I did a lot of work related to things like workforce
Yeah.
management and shit. So
Yep.
it's actually helping in that space. That's actually
Yeah,
really encouraging.
like, yeah, and a lot of it's coming from like what were traditionally conversational AI providers, or
Hmm.
but even Workday has like the shift scheduling piece for
Hmm.
frontline workers, and it's um
Oh,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
awesome.
yeah,
The reason why I get excited about some of that stuff. So technology is kind of an end unto itself and can be fun and interesting, and then understanding it and the data associated with it, obviously something I care about. But a part of it is just like I've walked the floors of these places and seeing people and talking to them about what it's like to do their job and what are their pain points and their friction points, and like shift management at a lot of the companies I've worked with is like a huge pain point for people.
huge,
And so this like improves people's lives. Like I've known like
huge.
many folks that have like gone through divorces or like estranged from their children because like they can't get these kind of things worked out. So this is like actually making people's lives better. So I'm actually really glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you think about like the frontline workforce is just so interesting, but it's like to your point, it's not just making their lives better. Like, oh, now I've got a gift certificate to go to like get a
Hmm.
massage, like where we talk about kind of like well-being. This is like life changing. Like to your point, like to be with your kids more, your family more, to be able to take care of someone at home because you can't work night shifts anymore because that was the only job you could get at the time, and it absolutely doesn't work for your schedule anymore because you feel in danger working with another employee during a shift and you cannot work that shift anymore and you can't tell your manager and have them take action on it. You need that shift to change right away. And there's no judgment. Like typically, if you call in and you have to change, like I can't show up for my
Yeah.
shift, the reaction you're going to get from your manager is like, are you kidding me? Like, what are we supposed to do today? The reaction you're going to get from an agent is, I'm so sorry to hear that. Take care of your kid at home.
Yeah.
I get it. We've got another shift this day and you can do it.
Well, I think, and this kind of goes back to the point I was making about the choice of the word people intelligence from earlier. A lot of the AI applications that I've seen in society, not just in HR, but more broadly, are like autonomy reducing
Yeah.
and agency reducing, and that it doesn't allow people to actually have control over their lives. And I love hearing about use cases where the opposite might actually be true, and like giving people the empowerment, the autonomy back to kind of control their life a little bit more. And that's why like small thing, it's not a small thing, but like small things like
Yeah.
shift management actually like lets you actually plan and have a life.
Right.
And that's really what it's about, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's another low risk thing. Like if it doesn't work, if you don't like it and it doesn't work, then call your manager. If that's the path you'd rather take, go that path.
I'm going to go look into this after the podcast. You got me excited now. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
Um, well, let's do some what am I reading? And I appreciate it before we start recording you were complimentary of some of these things that I've chosen. So I the first one I've got is from an author on Substack named Irene Hoffman. I don't know Irene, but it sounds interesting. If you can't get a job today, it's your fault. The job market is fine. You are not. I'm like, okay, I'm listening because this is very provocative, very
Hmm.
counter narrative as
Hmm.
to what people are talking about. And so the first line is if you are college educated and you cannot get a job in 2026, it is your fault. I'm sorry, but it's true. And they go through like a lot of things about the unemployment statistics and the number of job openings and that type of thing. But there was 2 points I really wanted to hit on in here and get your thoughts on, Madeline. One is they show this kind of napkin based drawing that shows the hiring premium versus the US News college rank. And so historically speaking, the higher your college rank in the US News and World Report, the more likely you were to be hired at like a top firm, right? And what the author is showing is that it actually has stopped mattering a lot once you get past about the top 20 schools.
Mm.
And so it's really fallen off a cliff. So that the example they use here is if you went to Tufts, which is ranked number 36, or DePaul, who's ranked 169 on the US News and World Report, they're essentially equivalent now, where there used to be great differences between the two, which I thought was very provocative. And so they kind of answer the question from earlier about if you don't think you're hireable, what does make you hireable?
Yeah.
And so if it is not your brand of college, what is it? And to show the only thing that matters is you have to show you can add value, and that is it. And so I see a lot of things in the news now about new college graduates not being able to find jobs, and a lot of it is like, can you go out and demonstrate that you have the skills to use AI to do something effectively,
Yep.
and that you can learn the context of the business and show that you can add value. So I shared a lot there, but what were your thoughts on this one, Madeline? And did you take anything away from it?
This was so interesting too. I mean, the title itself, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, you've got my attention with this title, and you kind of think it's going to be a negative
Hmm.
article. It's not. I think it's a very positive article. It's a very positive message. I think look at the competition. I love the conversation around early talent, but you look at the competition of getting into colleges, right? Of young people, and I've got a son about to go to college in a few years, and you look at these young people and they're competing and it's impossible. It's so much harder than when we were getting into colleges.
Yep.
And then you think about, okay, what happens after college and the competition of getting a job or first job at a good company that you'd want to work for. And that feels even harder. I love that to see that it's not tied to the college you went to or the university that you went to. And I do think it should be what value can you show? I think
Hmm.
some of these schools, like I get a lot of associates that work for Aptitude from Bentley College in Boston in the Massachusetts area.
Okay.
Bentley is a fantastic school. I don't know where it's going to rank there, but it's not going to be in top 100. But it's a fantastic business school. And the students that go there are entrepreneurs. They work hard. They're self-starters. There's a lot of independence. There's a lot of value that they add from the work that they do. And so I love the message overall. I love that it's about what value. And I think if we can teach students to think about that while they're going through school, and I don't just mean college, like high school, start to think about where you're going to add value to, because it doesn't just matter when you get the job, it matters every single day that you're working there. Because if there's a fear of, companies going through layoffs, we're shifting because of AI is taking on certain tasks. Where can I ask yourself that every day? Where can I add value?
Absolutely. I love it. And you heard it here first. Go hire from Bentley so Madeline can't hire from him anymore.
No, keep family from me. I was just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Can't share your secrets publicly or other
Yep,
people come steal them.
yep.
All right. Well, I got the next one for you is a LinkedIn post, but it's based on some research from a guy named Tim Ballard, where he's showing the relationship uh, between the job design of a role and people's satisfaction in the role, and then the compensation associated, like what they would be willing to take, like how much more would they need to get paid, or how much less would they need to get paid based on some of the job design components. And so, one of the things that they found, I'll show this visualization first that just shows how much is a good job design worth to an employee.
Mhm.
If they have a good job design, the highest variable was a variety of interesting things. That's worth $20,000 in annual salary to an employee. The negative, the most negative was fear and stress will make them ill. It was $15,000 less that they would be willing to accept for the job if they had that fear and stress. And doing the same things repeatedly was a negative,
Yeah.
and that's more stressful than they imagined was also negative. The top two at the top for being positives were often learning new skills and just feeling like they're paid fairly at work. I could go more into this one in terms of the research, but what did you think about this one, Madeline?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see that paid fairly. I know the first thing I noticed was paid fairly wasn't number one. I was like,
Okay.
oh, okay. But to see interest, I think that was very interesting. It makes sense. I think, where I landed to after reading it was like the job design is so important, and I think impacts not just whether somebody is happy and able to, kind of perform at work, but also like overall, like tying this to like company success and the business value. But I was like thinking like, okay, whose job is it to work on the job design? Like what happens, I think for so many companies is like you've got this job design in place or job architecture in place that's been around for years and years and years.
Yeah.
We haven't updated it. We've never really given any thought to what would make someone happy or unhappy at work. So who should be doing that work? I don't know if it's recruiting. I don't know who should be doing that work.
Mm. Probably not recruiting. I actually talked about this with Nick last week that I think org design is an underappreciated area of workforce planning. And in terms of, again, you can not just improve employees' lives, which is more
Yeah.
about, but you can actually make your business operate more effectively by doing better org design and creating new roles that make people more productive. And so, just going back to this research, the top three things that are valuable to people were interest, learning, and initiative. Autonomy, going back to what we were saying about shifts, is actually related to about $6,000 to $10,000, which is great. And the key negative components were stress and monotony, right? Doing
Mm,
the same things
yeah.
over and over again. And so if you can re-architect your role, so like I think of things like job architecture as kind of the scaffolding that allows someone to kind of acquire skills that then allow them to be more productive, that then allow them to kind of get paid more and then be paid fairly, and making sure you have the market data that
Yeah.
is appropriate for that. But like kind of upstream of that is like, what is the job, right? What work needs to get done? And I think that's really fundamentally a workforce planning question at its core.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. Like thinking about research we've done like in the past, it's always been like the org design part is the basics. Like if we were
Mhm.
going to do a maturity model on workforce planning, if a company was doing org design, we'd probably put them at a basic, just getting started with workforce planning. I love this is making me rethink that obviously with what you're saying, which is like we need to flip this. This is actually at the strategic, most mature level. It needs to happen probably early stages and then multiple times again.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point, especially for the moment that we're in 2026.
Hmm.
And the moment that we're in is businesses are a lot of times not investing in hiring more people, right? And so if you realize that one of your key levers for being more productive and getting more out of people was hiring, and you can't use that lever as much as you used to, what can you do? Well, you can use AI, which is a lot of firms are investing in, but you can also change how the work gets done.
Right.
And if you can re-architect how the work gets done, you can kind of do more with less. And so org design is, again, I think, an underappreciated area of what's going on right now.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. That's making me rethink. I didn't think that before. I'm not saying I agree because that's what I've been thinking. You've made me rethink that.
No, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's pretty. No, where you helped me on the workforce management software, so we're both learning things. This is great. This is why we talk. This is
This is
why
why
we
we talk.
podcast, Madeline.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is the best stuff. And I think it's actually a really great segue into the third. It's not really an article so much as it is just a this author on LinkedIn named
Yeah.
Daniel Kafer put together a model of how AI transformation is going to change the org design of HR. So the HR operating model, and I don't want to like what I try to do when people put out ideas about what the future could look like. It's really easy to throw pot shots. I
Hmm.
really try to do that. So what I want to do is get your thoughts on. So this person, they described the HR operating model today, where you've got the HR organization, you've got talent acquisition, HR business partners, L&D, total rewards, people analytics, and HR operations, all kind of working in conjunction. And then they put to forward this idea of what the HR operating organization will be when it's AI driven at its core. And it's got four components here. It does have workforce intelligence, which you talked about earlier. You've got capability architecture, which is probably related to what we were just saying about job architecture and org design. You've got AI augmented or operations, and then you've got workforce strategy and design as well. What do you think is good about this? And then what are some areas, in your opinion, that you see maybe are left out as well?
Yeah, it was interesting. This was the first, this was the first one I actually clicked on of the articles and
Mm-hmm.
read this LinkedIn post. And then I think that's when I told you follow really smart people on LinkedIn. I was like, I'm getting a lot of garbage on LinkedIn. This is really good. It's interesting. I love the rethink on this. I think to me, some of these areas might be a little overlapping. I like the simplification. But I almost like, to me, it's not necessarily what's missing. It's like just the design of like just the visual of still silos. Like I want to see the building, like the workforce intelligence is a foundation, and then I want to
Mm-hmm.
see everything building on that. So I'd have to like really look through and think about what I think
Yeah.
is missing here. But I do feel like the overall just visual design of it needs to be more of a this is building on this and this is building on this and it's all working together versus like we've got our column and now we've got our other column and they might not work
Yeah,
together.
I just really appreciate when somebody's kind of willing to put themselves out there and step into the
Oh
arena.
yeah.
Yeah, because like one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if this was intentional or not that they did it, but what they did is they took the verticals of HR and they kind of horizontalized them
Yep.
so that you've got across the four components of like workforce intelligence, capability architecture, the operations, and the workforce strategy and design. You've got all the subcomponents of what used to be verticals in HR, which I thought was
Really
fascinating.
good. Yeah.
The one thing that I thought was just, I'm not sure if this is an oversight or oh, and by the way, I forgot they put strategy as kind of a separate
Separate.
entity up and to the right, kind of I guess maybe like the right hand of the CHRO, perhaps. I'm not sure if I understand that correctly,
Hmm.
but I do not see HR business partners in here,
Hmm. Oh,
and
interesting. I didn't even pick up on that. Interesting. Hmm.
And I just wonder if I would love to just kind of like talk to this person because I suspect that they were putting what HR business partners are doing under the AI augmented operations.
Hmm.
And I am curious, especially from what I really wanted to talk to you about is if that thesis is true, like if I understand this correctly, are you seeing the technology and the AI augmentation out there that is actually targeting the HR business partner skills and roles right now, Madeline, or is this a missing part of the market?
Um, yeah, this is really interesting. I no, I don't see right now a lot of what we're seeing on the AI side targeting HR business partners. I think maybe it's shifting, maybe it's broader
Mm-hmm.
than what we're seeing, and that's maybe why it was intentionally left off. But I think
Yeah.
when I think about HR business partners, I think a lot of even what we've talked about with other roles of like the kind of the judgment, the decision making, the facilitation is still valuable.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things I've actually been thinking about lately, and that's why I brought this one up to you. Um, is it seems to me that the HR business partner role is the linchpin of AI workforce transformation, whether it's going to be
Yeah.
completely transformative or whether we're going to look up and 10 years have passed and HR is almost indistinguishable from what it is today. And the thing that's interesting to me is I see a lot of buzz about how AI is going to transform HR. And I see it a lot around the margins of like the shared services and even some of the COEs where the technology is coming in. And I see very, very little technology that's coming in that's transforming the HR business partner job.
Hmm.
And if that job doesn't change, in my opinion, HR is not going to change a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm very curious to see what happens in this space. And I know, again, I would love to get your perspective. Is that an area that we should be seeing more transformation and we're not?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think not enough, right? I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely not enough. I think just even in general, like there aren't enough discussions around like what are these roles that need to transform. There's a lot of discussions around what will be eliminated or what roles
Mhm.
won't we see anymore. Like what roles completely need to change and how do they need to change in order for this transformation to happen.
Yeah. When you pointed out one thing, just to kind of go sideways here for a
Yeah.
second, about finding these articles, and I told you how I just spend a lot of time curating my LinkedIn. But why does LinkedIn suck so bad? Like it used to be a useful resource. Like every day it's getting worse. Like I mean, I'm even starting to see. I don't know, this is like so inappropriate, but I wish it wasn't on there. I'm even seeing like thirst traps and stuff on
Tons
LinkedIn
of
now.
thirst traps. I
Like
know.
what the heck? Why is this happening?
Why is this the place that you're posting a bikini picture? I don't understand it. I don't know. I mean, part of it's like I think a lot of people are not on Twitter or X anymore. That was
Mhm.
where I'd put like, oh, like, my son came home with like a silly blah 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 joke today, and this is the joke. That's appropriate for to me, like for Twitter or X or something. And
Mhm.
I don't use that, but I would never go to LinkedIn and then post it there. I think a lot of people are now posting that stuff. And a lot of people aren't on Facebook either, so they're now posting this stuff on, I mean, I everything from like terminal illness to
Mhm.
like
Babies.
yeah, I'm dating. I went on an
Yep.
amazing date last night, and this is what I just want to share. Like I saw this yesterday. It was like I went on the best date last night, and this is why our date was so good. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I really could care less.
Yeah, and that's I mean I've gone I don't even know if you're on there or not, but I'm almost to a 50-50 tipping point from being more on Substack than on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And it's because it's like it's not that it's like an adequate replacement for what LinkedIn used to be because it's not. But at least it's not stupid. And it's just like at least the stuff on Substack is very high
yeah,
idea. Like I've been focusing on this term I've been calling lately idea density.
yeah.
LinkedIn used to have pretty high idea density, and now it does not.
It doesn't,
And
and no, and the
yeah, and I feel
algorithm, whatever it serves up, is this garbage that it's just it actually got really bad during the pandemic. Kind of, I felt like it calmed down and it feels bad again now. Tim Sackett did this experiment where he was like, I'm going to post this article, like I'm going to post this whole thing on LinkedIn about how I was walking past a dumpster and found a one-eyed puppy and it had a patch. And he got a stock photo of a puppy with a patch and put it on there. And when I tell you hundreds and hundreds of like comments, you're the best person, it was like his most popular post ever. It was all a lie.
yeah, I'd actually done kind of a similar experiment like that, not as clever as that one, but yeah, and it was very sad. I did two posts,
Mm-hmm.
like an A/B test, and I
Yep.
did one. Well, it was essentially about the kind of the same subject, but one was actually like a helpful, community-oriented, data-driven post, and then another one was completely stupid
Yep.
and like top 10 things that I wish I had done, like all these like kind of kitschy ones, and that was like I think it was my second most popular post last year, and it was the one that was supposed to be the bad post,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yep.
this is
It was the
ridiculous.
experiment. Yeah.
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 And I was like, oh my God, I hate this. I hate this
Yeah.
for all of us. We're all becoming dumber.
I know.
Um,
I know.
but you've been fantastic to have on here, Madeline. Any parting words, anything you want to chat with me about before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation and it's made me think about things differently. I think I mean, the shifts that are happening are exciting, but they can be scary. I know for people too, but um, I think we're going to see a lot of change in
Yeah.
the next year.
Well, if people want to keep up with some of the research that you're doing, or they want to just find you more generally, where can they learn more about what you're doing?
So aptituderesearch.com, or we have tons of reports there that get published frequently, and there's one actually interesting one we're just publishing on talent intelligence, looking at company like big tech companies versus like AI startups that are growing so quickly right now.
Will it be
So
out by the time this episode releases?
yes.
Any insights you can share really quick
Oh,
on?
I'll say there's a lot in there. There's like on just kind of retention, promotions, like it's just very interesting.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
go check out her report. I couldn't get her to share publicly what's going on yet. But Madeline, thanks so much for joining, and you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with your host Cole Napper and today's guest Madeline Laurano. Thanks for joining me, Madeline.